There's a house, abandoned for years. It stands on the edge of town, surrounded by dense woods. Its once grand architecture now decayed and forgotten, like the memories of the family who used to live there. The windows are boarded up, the roof is caving in, and weeds have claimed the yard. But despite all this, the house still seems alive, almost as if it's waiting for something. Or someone. Not many people dare to go near it. The few who do speak of strange occurrences, flickering lights in the upper windows late at night, distant footsteps echoing from within when no one is supposed to be there. Some claim they've heard voices calling out in the wind. But of all the rumors that circulate about this house, one thing remains constant. No one who's entered the house has ever returned the same. It was late autumn when I first heard the story. A friend of mine, Jack, who had grown up in the town, dared me to spend the night there. He said it was all just superstition, that the house was harmless. But even he seemed uneasy when he spoke of it. There was a lingering fear in his eyes, a hesitation that I couldn't ignore. But curiosity, as it often does, got the better of me. I agreed. I was about to leave the office late that evening when I noticed something strange. I had been working for hours, staring at my screen as the room gradually darkened. The office was silent, save for the faint hum of the air conditioning. The door, which had been firmly closed, was slightly ajar. I walked over to it, feeling a sudden chill creep up my spine. It wasn't that the door was left open, it was the way it was positioned, just enough for me to see the reflection of the hallway lights, but not enough for anyone to slip through unnoticed. My heartbeat quickened. I pushed the door open fully, expecting to see no one, but the hallway was eerily quiet. Just like my office. No sounds, no footsteps, just the dim glow of the lights flickering. The strange thing, the door to the storage closet at the end of the hall was wide open. Now, I'm not one to jump to conclusions, but the storage closet had always been locked at night. Only a select few had the key, and none of them were still around. I didn't want to go down that hallway. I stood still, looking at the empty space, the hair on my neck standing on end. I turned back to the office to grab my bag. That's when I heard it, a faint scratching sound, like something dragging along the floor. My first instinct was to ignore it, but my feet betrayed me. I couldn't stop myself from walking toward the storage closet. With every step, the scratching grew louder. It was as if someone or something was trying to claw its way out from inside. As I approached the closet, the temperature seemed to drop and my breath misted in front of me. I hesitated, staring at the darkness beyond the closet door. What could be in there? A stray animal? A homeless person? A figure? I couldn't bring myself to open it. Then the scratching stopped. The silence was worse than the sound. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat growing louder in my ears. Slowly, I reached for the handle of the door and turned it. The door creaked open as if it hadn't been used in years. Inside the closet was nothing. Empty shelves, boxes stacked in neat piles. But then, at the very back, something caught my eye, a shape in the shadows. It was small, almost childlike, huddled in the corner. I stepped closer, my mind racing. Was it a person? A mannequin? As I neared, the figure shifted. It wasn't a mannequin. It was a person, crouched down, their back to me. I froze. They hadn't noticed me yet, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to be seen. "Are you all right?" I whispered, but the words barely left my mouth before the figure jerked its head back to look at me. It was a woman, her face pale and gaunt. Her hair hung around her face in matted strands, and her eyes were wide open, unblinking, staring directly at me with an unnatural intensity. For a moment, neither of us moved. I should have run. I should have screamed, but I couldn't. My body felt frozen, trapped in that gaze. Then the woman smiled. It wasn't a comforting smile. It was unsettling, almost as if she knew something I didn't. Her lips stretched unnaturally wide, exposing sharp teeth that seemed to glisten in the dim light. "You shouldn't have opened the door," she said, her voice a rasping whisper, barely audible. The room seemed to spin. I couldn't comprehend her words, my mind racing to make sense of what I was seeing. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. The woman's smile widened even more, her teeth glinting in the dim glow of the storage room. "This place has been mine for a long time," she said, her voice suddenly sweet, but edged with malice. And now that you're here, you'll never leave. The door behind me slammed shut with a deafening bang, the sound echoing through the empty halls. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned, panicking, and tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. The woman's laughter filled the room, an eerie, hollow sound that seemed to reverberate off the walls. She was no longer crouching, but standing, towering over me. Her once pale skin now seemed to shimmer with an unnatural, almost translucent glow, as if she was no longer fully human. "You've crossed the threshold," she said, stepping closer. "And once you do, there's no turning back." I backed away, my fingers scrambling for the doorknob. "What do you want from me?" I gasped. Her eyes gleamed with a wicked delight. "Nothing. I already have everything I need. You're just another soul to add to my collection." Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped to freezing. I could see my breath in front of me as the woman's form seemed to flicker and distort, her body warping into something almost unrecognizable, her face stretching with a grotesque, monstrous grin. With a final scream, I threw myself at the door, slamming my shoulder into it, but it held firm. My heart was racing, and I could feel the air growing thicker and heavier. The woman's laughter grew louder, more distorted, as if it was coming from everywhere at once. I looked back at her, my eyes wide with terror. She was moving toward me, her movements jerky and unnatural. Her body was now a grotesque mixture of human and something else, something inhuman. The door behind me suddenly gave way, crashing open. I didn't hesitate. I ran, but as I made it to the hallway, I realized I wasn't alone. The woman was right behind me, her footsteps echoing in the silence. Her laughter still rang in my ears as I sprinted down the corridor, desperate for escape. I didn't look back again. I didn't need to. I knew she was there, and when I reached the elevator, I pressed the button furiously, praying for it to come. The door slid open, and I rushed inside, breathing heavily, but I felt the cold breath of the woman just behind me. As the elevator doors closed, her voice echoed one last time, chilling me to the bone. "You can run, but you'll never leave." Then there was silence. As the screen flickers back to life, the elevator doors remain closed. The protagonist's breath comes in ragged gasps, their fingers trembling as they reach for the emergency button again. Silence. The world outside the elevator feels distant, as if it no longer exists. Then a whisper, soft, chilling, echoes through the cramped space. "You were never supposed to leave." The lights flicker one last time, then go out completely. The darkness swallows them whole. Days later, the office building is busy as usual. Employees walk past the elevator without a second glance. No one questions the faint, lingering scent of something old and rotting. No one notices the slight distortion in the security footage, where, for just a second, a desperate face appears behind the closed elevator doors, screaming in silence. The office moves on. The world forgets, but the building remembers. It always remembers.